Welcome back, focused learners. Today we have an explainer covering a text that aims to fundamentally challenge the way we view our modern world. We're going to unpack a radical, traditionalist critique of modern secular society. So think about this for a second. What if the basic assumptions we live by every single day, the things we all just consider to be plain old common sense, are actually the result of a highly specific and honestly very recent philosophical conditioning? I am incredibly excited to guide you through this material, so get ready to look at reality through a completely different lens.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a deeply disorienting quote from the philosopher Boethius. He says, "You have forgotten what you are." Now, to really understand what this means in our modern context, the source asks us to play along with a little thought experiment. I want you to picture a modern time traveler stepping backward into a distant age. When they arrive, they probably look around and think the people of the past were completely insane, or they'd start doubting their own sanity. And why is that? Well, because while the physical mountains and skies would obviously look the same, their underlying meaning would be entirely different. Our modern time traveler would suddenly discover that what we consider objective, common sense, and normality is actually highly abnormal to almost everyone else in human history.
The source material for our explainer today is Gai Eaton's fascinating book, King of the Castle. As we go through these ideas, we are going to impartially explore Eaton's incredibly challenging perspective. His worldview is deeply rooted in perennial wisdom and the Islamic tradition. You see, Eaton isn't just writing some dry historical critique. He's presenting a religious, traditional framework designed to contrast directly with the modern secular worldview. Our goal here is simply to map out this fascinating philosophical territory together.
Section 1. The Time Traveler's Shock. Questioning the unquestionable.
So this is really all about recognizing the invisible walls that surround us. Eaton tackles our modern sense of superiority head-on. We tend to look back at the past and see all their limited beliefs, right? All the avenues they completely left unexplored. It's so easy for us to assume that by adopting our modern, rational assumptions, we've somehow escaped human limitation altogether. But Eaton argues, no, we haven't escaped it all. We aren't some brand new species with perfect vision. He suggests that comparing our worldview to the past is literally just comparing different kinds of limitation. It's like a guy tunneling his way out of a prison cell, only to pop his head up and realize he's still inside the prison yard. He's merely exchanged one philosophical self for another. We're all still captive to the conditioning of our own era.
Moving on to Section 2, the illusion of progress, and what the author calls a superstitious faith. This concept builds into one of the absolute most prominent features of our modern conditioning. According to Eaton, our era has a superstitious faith in progress. Even when our attempts at endless growth cause catastrophic new problems, this faith just keeps enduring. Modern people tend to view problems merely as obstacles standing in the way of their progressive goals. We immediately scramble to invent a new law, a new piece of technology, or a new reform to fix the issue. But Eaton points out that we almost never stop to consider the unthinkable. What if the initial choice of the goal itself is the root of the deformity? What if our total obsession with the future is blinding us to our true nature right now, in the present?
Which brings us to Section 3, the bubble metaphor, visualizing reality.
To really grasp how the traditional worldview differs from our modern secular one, we absolutely have to visualize it. And I'm thrilled to share Eaton's most powerful visualization with you next. I want you to paint a vivid mental picture here. Imagine a boundless summer landscape. Huge hills, sweeping valleys, endless forests, just stretching out infinitely. Now imagine that somewhere in this vast, measureless extension, a child is blowing bubbles for sheer joy, catching the sunlight, drifting in the breeze. Now here is the massive shift in scale. Eaton asks us to compare everything we know, our Earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the whole shebang of our known universe, to just one of those fleeting, tiny bubbles. It exists in the landscape, sure, but it's a very small thing, and in a few moments, it's totally gone. The infinite landscape surrounding it is the absolute, the divine reality.
So if we are all living inside this tiny bubble, how do traditionally minded people interact with that vast landscape outside? Well, the source outlines 3 ways. Step 1 is simple faith. Those whose spiritual sight is weak might not actually see outside, but they trust the reports of others and they firmly believe the landscape exists. Step 2 is recognizing reflections. Some folks begin to realize that the things they see on the bubble's skin are actually just reflections of the reality outside, having absolutely no independent existence of their own. And finally, step 3 is a genuine miracle of sight. A few rare individuals actually pierce that thin, transparent membrane with their vision, seeing entirely beyond faith to the absolute reality outside the bubble.
But what about those who completely reject the landscape outside? Eaton introduces a really crucial Islamic term here,
the Kafirun, which translates to the unbelievers. But the source defines this very specifically. It literally means those who are covered over or muffled in tissues of illusion. To Eaton, this perfectly describes the modern secular person who takes the tiny bubble for the all-in-all. They flat out deny that anything real exists outside this tiny, fleeting sphere of the physical universe. To the traditional mind, you have to understand this isn't just a simple difference of opinion. It's viewed as a fundamental blindness to reality itself.
Section 4. The traditional human norm. What is man?
This brings us right back to that opening quote from Boethius. Because if you only believe in the bubble, how does that change your fundamental view of what a human being actually is? There is a really stark contrast between these two perspectives. In the modern view, humans are essentially seen as super clever animals. Our main purpose is to exploit the Earth's wealth, whether that's for personal enjoyment or for the service of society, right up until our little light is extinguished. We are basically transient economic units. But the traditional view sees humanity entirely differently. Man is a symbol representing the absolute. The human being is meant to be a dignified viceroy of the sacred, standing upright between earth and sky. As you can see, these two views offer absolutely no common ground.
And this massive difference in how we define a human being is exactly why the subtitle of Eaton's book emphasizes choice and responsibility in the modern world. The source argues that true choice and real moral responsibility are actually impossible if we are constantly shifting our standards based on modern, progressive whims. To have any real responsibility, we have to measure ourselves against an immutable, traditional norm, a standard of human health and wholeness that has existed throughout all the ages.
All right, moving into Section 5. No place left to hide. The modern climax.
We are officially reaching the climax of this explainer. Why does Gai Eaton feel that pointing out this philosophical difference isn't just some fun academic exercise, but a truly urgent existential battle? Well, this brings us to a rather chilling realization from the author. There is going to be no more opting out. Think about it. In the past, if a wise person strongly disagreed with the direction of their society, they could just retreat. They could go to a monastery, head out into the desert, or just live quietly on the margins. But the modern secular machine is entirely unique. It attempts to absorb the whole man, body and soul. Through economics, modern education, and early social conditioning, it effectively leaves the traditional believer totally cornered, with literally no place left to hide. Because of this, Eaton proposes a completely different way for us to evaluate our modern world. We usually judge a society by asking, is it efficient? Is it benevolent? Is it well-ordered? But from the traditionalist perspective, the ultimate test of any contemporary society is simply this. Does it still leave breathing space for the sacred? Does it tolerate the outsiders, the eccentrics, and the true believers who absolutely refuse to be absorbed by secular conditioning? For Eaton, a society that suffocates the sacred is profoundly deformed, no matter how shiny or technologically advanced it might appear to be. Wow, okay, we've covered some incredibly deep philosophical ground today, contrasting a society driven by transient progress with one anchored in eternal reality. I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over based on Eaton's powerful metaphor. When you look at your life, your career, and the physical world all around you, are you merely looking at the bubble's surface, taking it for all in all, or are you trying to look through it out to the infinite landscape beyond? Keep questioning the unquestionable, and we'll see you in the next explainer.